Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'll wait for a few people to get on in here. Let me just turn on my. Oh, I gotta move that heater to the side. Just turn my that way. Get rid of the light. I don't know if anybody can hear me, so I was having issues again with the music. Trying to get to upload. So if you can hear me, whoever comes on, good evening, brother Jorge. Can you hear me? Okay. I was having some technical issues again. I still can't seem to get the music to play. I don't know what's going on. That's the second weekend in a row that it has not worked properly. So I'm hoping it will, if this is even working. Okay, great. You can hear me. All right. Well, I have no idea why I can't get the music intro to work. I have not a clue what's going on with that. A little bit annoying because I like to have some nice music in the beginning, but I guess I'm not going to get nice music this week, so I'll have to figure that out and troubleshoot that tomorrow. Um, I should have probably checked it today before I started this live stream to see if it was working, but I was busy doing other things and got caught up doing other things. So there you have it. How's your day going today, brother Jorge? I hope it's going well. Uh, Hope things are decent in your neck of the woods. I have no idea how the weather is up there either. I have not looked at the weather in your area. I always try to check the different areas and how the weather is. I know today it's warm. Well, it's a little cooler now because it's nighttime. But I hope your week has gone so far, going well. But we'll hang out here for a little bit, see if any more folks come in. Um, I've been in an interesting place myself this week. A lot of things I've decided to start doing this week. A lot of approaches this week. Um, my youngest birthday, oh wow, oh that's cool. Well, that's awesome. 4. Yikes! Time flies by, doesn't it? I don't remember the one that I remember we sent. Well, I didn't send. I'll be honest. My wife sent the birthday card to there. I can't remember which one of your daughters that was, but that's pretty neato. She's 4, so I'm glad you got to spend time. I'm assuming you spent time with it today. I'm just taking wild guesses here, but that's awesome. That's pretty cool. Um, yeah, like I was saying earlier, for me, different approach this week. I think the Lord is using me in a different direction. This week and going forward. Something I tried to avoid or not really get into, but I think I'm going to have to get into it more. Good evening, Prov Gal. That was for my middle one. Yes, I've been with them. It was for your middle one. Okay. I couldn't remember. I'm sorry, man. I'm a guy. I can't remember all those things. Wives are just so much better at remembering that stuff. Um, Another wonderful role that wives play. Um, they play a huge role. You know how I feel about that. But yeah, for me, it's been you know a lack of better words or a lack of better phrasing. It's been an interesting week for myself. Well, you already know about that situation I ran into this week with that pregnant lady, but I really think the Lord is putting me in a different direction. It's not originally the direction I would like to take, but I think the Lord is moving me to tackle some issues that I don't normally like to get into. Um, One would call it middle school stuff, but I've been sad this week a little bit um, about how many people are being messed up or confused and sent down different directions um, we obviously know we're in that time frame of a great falling away, and we know that, but it's sad when you see people who are being used, people who are being abused. I don't mean just physically. I mean spiritually and mentally, and there's a lot of hatred going on out there, and a lot of division. And we knew it was going on a long time, and I try not to get into that. I try to take the high road. Um, I don't know if I'm making this saying up, but I used to say this all the time. The high road is the most difficult road you're ever going to drive on. But might have to. I feel like the Lord might have me take a lower road a little bit and attack some issues that exist out there. Um, I think the reason why I'm able to, or I'm probably able to take this approach is because I have no affiliations with anybody, or I have no falling out with any like channels or organizations or churches or anything like that I used to be associated with. None of that. So I consider myself blessed that I don't have um, any vendetta. No one can accuse me of having a vendetta against anyone in particular, but um, without calling out people's names, and I hope to avoid that. I know what the Bible teaches us, and we should be calling out heretics and heresies and so forth. I understand that, but I think there are men who are better at it than I am. I don't know that that's something I want to do right now. I mean, if the Lord leads me to just full on just start listing names, I'll do it. But I think that's something I've talked about before that we should not take lightly and just jump in. I think people love to have controversy. I mean, if you look at your videos and the titles that exist out there, everybody's making titles that have a clickbait mentality to it or aura around them. I use the word aura, so somebody's gonna go, "That's a witchcraft word." Calm down. And that's another thing. People are trying to find things to attack people on. Um, I've always been a pretty open book, so there's not really much you can attack me on because I don't hide anything. Um, I think I've never claimed ever to be a preacher. I've never claimed to be a teacher or any of those things. Now I have said that I'll do some preaching. I'll preach at you. I'll do some teaching, but yeah, I'm not. I'm just brother Stephen, and I think we forget that we're brothers, uh, sisters, and it has made me more sad. Um, Not that I'm gonna cry now. I don't mean it that way. It disheartens me to see such division and such malice and slander and things out there, and it just exists everywhere. And I see young people being taken advantage of because they don't like what's going on in certain places, and it's rather unfortunate. I don't want to be too morose. This is supposed to be more of an uplifting fellowship and exhortation evening, so I don't want to get too deep in it. But it's men need to step up. I'm telling you, man. Older men, older women, we got to step up because these young people are just getting lied to. They're being treated like garbage, or they find people who pretend to care about their feelings or that they care about them, and they don't. They don't, and it's unfortunate and it's sad. But we need to and I don't want to make this a kumbaya or we all need unity. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean, but we need to come together. We're King James people and we're supposed to follow the King James. And if it ain't in the King James, we ain't supposed to do it, basically. Um, Depending on what it is. I mean, you know, the King James doesn't say, well, it doesn't say you should tuck your child in at night. Let's not go down silly roads like that. Talking about major issues and major things. And too many people and see, here's the thing: the people that are attacking one another are being led by other people, and that's the problem here. We got my youngest is 10 now, and goes by so fast. Yep, it really does. It really does go by quickly. Um, I forgot what I was saying, but we are in a tough time. These young people, these young Christians, they have the zeal, and a lot of Christians. I mentioned this in a video earlier. They don't like what's going on in the church buildings, and they have every right to feel that way. And by the way, 95% of what they're saying is probably true, and most likely I will agree with it. But the problem is they run from one to another, so they just abandon one burning house to run to another house that's being lit on fire. A lack of a better analogy. Um, we become less amiable, less sociable, um, secluding ourselves, going to isolation. And I understand, by the way, some people can't just find 10 people in their local town. I get that. I very much understand that. But my concern, my fear is that some people are not even making the effort. Now, I'm not. If you're making the effort, it's not you I'm talking to, but it's in general. People are not making that attempt. Um, and my goal always here has been that people can maybe find each other and email each other, talk to each other. It's a fellowship. I didn't make it so we can just fellowship, come here, play a song, and listen to me preach to you all night long. Even though, yeah, I do most of the talking, but I stop anytime there's a comment on there. I'll stop and we'll address your comment. Um, because it's not about me. It shouldn't be about any man on the screen. And I think that's what happens. They start to think it's about them and how they feel when they do these type of live streams or anything like that, which is sad and unfortunate. Lots of that pretending to care. The younger ones need to know there are those that truly do care, yeah, and have grace for one another because, like you said, there's way too much division. I agree. 100% agree. And unfortunately, it's not people. It's not a bunch of people creating the division. It's the ones that have been put on pedestals that have become. We should not be idolizing any man or any woman, obviously, but they get put on a pedestal, and then those particular people like to create those divisions, especially on the internet. Some of you are old enough to know the term. I don't know how long it's been around, to be honest with you, but keyboard warriors, and I love that term because that's indeed what happens out there. A lot of people just talking. A lot of people think they're tough and they're better than them, and they can create these little divisions. It's kind of like you whisper in there and go, "Hey, Bob over there was saying something about Joe. Did you hear about that?" I mean, that's what I don't want to start any trouble, but that's what I heard. See, that happens all the time. That happened, by the way, that happens not just in the church buildings. That happens here on the internet too. So let's not fool ourselves believing that somehow when we ran from the church buildings, and you know me, well, some of you know me, I don't go to a church building. Okay. I'm not in a church building. So I'm not saying these things so I can get you to go to a church building. That's not my intent here. But the same things I noticed over the last few years that have existed in the church building exist on the internet as well, with these internet preachers and teachers and those the titles they gave themselves. Um, and it's prevalent there as well. I mean, they do the same thing with the little emails behind the back and things like, "Hey, what Bob said about Joe." And again, I'm not trying to start any trouble. That's what they do. I don't want to start any issues, but you know what I mean. And that's sad. It's really that middle school, and that's what saddens and disheartens me is the fact that that happens, and people are taking these sides, and for some things, they're taking some weird stances that are not even close to biblical. Now, there are other things that they take stances on that are not biblical, but I can see their argument, and I understand where they're coming from. I get it. I see where it is, and that happens. But the problem is we are all on a different path. I've said this many times. We are not on the same spot. Brother Jorge may know more about a certain area, and I keep using this analogy, but he may know more about I don't know, Psalms, and I know more about Romans. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. But we're all brothers, and we're here to help one another learn wherever we can help each other learn. This is not about one guy. This is not about one man, but it has turned into that in a lot of channels. And I'm not talking about just one or two obvious ones that we all know. There's many more than that. I know that they think that the world revolves around them and they're the only ones out there, but no, there's many like that out there. I spent a couple days just, just I went, you know what? I'm gonna stop for a couple hours. That's right, a couple hours, and just go through. And man, you got some decent folks out there. Don't get me wrong, but man, a lot of these like attack, 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 and it's sad. I'm not trying to be negative or pessimistic and say there's nobody because there are. Um, you know, I've met Brother Jorge and Sister X um, from a place that was not a good place. Um, not that not their lives being not a good place, but that particular channel from somebody who was way off the mark. Um, they are. I'm sorry, and I always wondered why I was involved with that person because that person I didn't even want to be involved with in the first place. I remember looking at the emails. I was telling my wife about this, and my wife, I did listen to my wife because she's always the one with a lot of love, a lot of mercy, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of give people a chance. And this person seemed off to me, but I was like, you know what? All right, I got to be better at that. And which since that person, I've been better at judging other people. But this, I think the Lord wanted me to get involved with this particular person. So to see the dangers. But not only that, but he brought two people into our lives from that. So out of that not great thing came a good thing. Um, and yes, I'm aware of that person. If anybody is going to make comments, I've already had some comments. I've had emails, and I'm thankful for them. I already know that the damage that they have done. I know all the stuff they talk about and stuff like that. I don't need to know it. I don't care about it. Um, but yeah, they're not good people, and that's fine. But they're going to do what they got to do over there. But I met good people out of that, and that's the positive part of it. Sometimes God puts you in a spot where you would never ever choose to be, and somehow you're like, why would I choose to be here? Because you didn't. God allowed you to be in that situation to learn from it, to see what kind of deception is going on. Um, I spent years, like I said, growing up in the church building, being a Pentecostal as a kid, growing up through all that. When I say I grew up in the church, man, I grew up in the church. If some of you know me, I may have told the story, but I was the first. Told you, amen, amen. Um, I was the first baby Jesus in that particular church because I was born in December. So I was 2 weeks old when played baby Jesus. So when I grew up there, right out of the womb. But and I've seen that whole thing my whole life. I've seen the non-denominational part of things. I've seen the Baptist part of things, and I've spent the last few years really looking at the non-church building side of things. And for me, I'm always I guess sociology is the best way I can sum it up. I've always loved the study of these things and how people are interacting, how people are just getting it wrong, and how people are just messed up. It's just I love to watch this, to see the other side of things, and I've now gotten a front row seat on both sides of this. And I've said before, I don't think either side realizes how alike they actually are, and that's the weird thing. The good parts and the bad parts, they're so similar. They're incredibly similar. And some of these guys, the only difference between them and the church building is that they're not meeting in a church building, but they follow all the same things. You know, my stance on Christmas. Um, and some people don't have tithing, but they call them donations and offerings and stuff like that. And you can pretty up the words all you want. I think I did a video a couple years ago on pastors or online pastors and preachers or something like that. I don't know. I'd like to tell you I'll remember to put the link on, but I probably will forget to put the link there. But it's an older video. I think I did it around the same time I did that whole 7-part series on why women are not supposed to be preachers and go out and preach. I mean, you would think it'd be obvious as a King James person, but I don't know. I don't want to be rude to anybody. Say that you're not smart enough to know. It's just, and that was another thing I've learned. A lot of things that I thought the anti-church building folks would be against, they're for. And so I've come to a point where I realize what makes you different. I've seen the whole church building system, and I've seen the online church system working, and there's not a whole lot of differences. There's still your cliques. There's still your division. There's still your gossip and slam. All of the same problems that exist in the church building actually exist in these online forums and chat forums. I don't, do they call them chat forums still? Boy, I feel like I'm a 90-year-old man when I said, do they still call them chat forums? But yeah, it's just, I'm surprised by it. And now, don't get me wrong, the online can be a great thing. You can meet people. Like I said, we met a couple of folks, and it can be a wonderful tool. It really can. But when we start getting information for one person and never questioning it or never fact checking it, although there are some people you could try to fact check or try to question, and they don't like that. They like the Catholic Church. And they'll excommunicate you. I have not had that issue. Well, no, I have been blocked, but I've never asked any questions or anything like that. I've made a couple of comments. One time I made a positive comment and I got blocked anyways. Interesting. So these problems exist, and I was talking about the video I made this morning about a lot of young people getting lost. Older men and older women, you have a vital role to play. More than ever, actually. Whatever small information that you have, you got to impart it. Don't be shy. Some of us think we don't know enough, but you know enough. God will lead you in the right direction to help the right person. If you let the Holy Spirit lead you, it's going to lead you. And it may be a weird situation, but He'll lead you. And we have to be open to that and be ready for that, because I think there are young people asking a lot of questions and they're getting a lot of bad answers. And I think the answers they're getting are answers that self serve the person who's giving the answer. And that shouldn't be. Um, that's a big problem. There are people throwing out, in my opinion, whole swaths of the Bible to fit their own narratives, to fit their own needs, to fit what they want. And that ain't right. And I keep going back to that. The term that my wife gave me a long time ago, they're buffet table Christians, just picking what they want and leaving the rest. Well, whether we like it or not, we have to follow the Bible and what the Bible tells us. You know, there are a lot of people who say, I stand on the word of God. Well, I think sometimes you only stand on parts that you like. You know, it's not the way it works. You know, it's just not. And I understand that sometimes we make mistakes and we slip up. I don't mean in like major, like I just murdered a guy. No, I don't mean it that way. That's not what I mean by slip up. You know, that's not the same. My unprofessional drink from a mason jar. But I know for me, I will be more attacking these issues more so than it did before. I think it's possible that I've been lukewarm on attacking it because I've been more worried about exhorting and help and lifting up those who have been put down and destroyed by uh, bad actors out there in the King James world. But I'm probably going to go forth. There's a lot of young men who don't get it, that are Christian men. And I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying they're getting bad information, like not working for a living. That's been a big pet peeve of mine. And I will be honest, and I said it earlier, anyone who tells you, or anyone who tells you how to work or deal with coworkers, but doesn't even work for a living, run from them as fast as you can, in my opinion. I know that's going to get me in trouble there. But I'm just saying, and I'll lose some folks on that. We gotta avoid those type of people. They've got nothing to tell you about those things. But and so I'll make more of a concerted effort on my part. There are things we should be doing every day in this week. I mean, there are opportunities that come our way during every day of the week. If you were letting the Spirit guide you and you're open, the Holy Spirit puts you in some situations like the one that happened with the pregnant lady there in Athens, Tennessee. I don't normally get involved with that all the time because I think a lot of those people are frauds. But sometimes, every once in a while, the Lord says, no, no, this one you need to help. So, and you go and do it. But all of us have somebody. There's somebody, whether it be a coworker, whether it be someone you run into the gas station or anything like that, or the grocery store. Um, So, and for those who are going to be watching, just some people I think that are watching this channel, I don't mean to use the word on the sly or anything like that, but I've come to the understanding that there are people who are just watching and waiting for certain answers and seeing what I'm going to say on certain topics. So I'll hit them a couple of those topics down if you don't mind. And again, you can interject and interrupt me anytime you want, because this isn't, I'm not doing a sermon. This is about fellowship and being with one another. But people misunderstand. I'm going to be doing, as I'm about to tell what you can say. I'm having one of them squirrel moments, but sometimes it's like a ton of squirrels. I don't know if anyone get that joke, but a lot of things I'll be doing about men, young men, and a lot of things I'll be doing about the women preaching. As some of you know, I did do that whole 7-part series. I think, I don't know, my wife can remember, or somebody on here might remember. It's like, I don't think a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't know when it was. It was a while ago, probably a couple of years ago. I'm gonna get into that again. I'm gonna really get into much deeper detail on each situation, because um, if you didn't watch it, there's 118 passages in the Bible that are referring to preaching. 8 in the Old Testament, 108 in the New Testament, and none of them have women preaching. Now, there are someone and some people who have assumed that I'm saying that women cannot share the gospel. Please understand, there's a difference between preaching and sharing the gospel and witnessing to someone. I think people like to lump everything into one thing. Now, that is not correct. I would ask them to go back to English class and understand these things. And people are like, oh, you're talking down to him because, well, what are you, Mr. High School and college? Actually, I dropped out of high school. I was bored in high school. I got good grades on my test, but I didn't do anything else. I couldn't stand high school. It's boring to me. So there you have it. So I'm not acting any smarter than anybody else. But verbiage means something in the way we use words in context. And I think a lot of people are blurring the lines on words and trying to morph them, especially in this new age we have today where women are men and men are women. And that's all, that's a whole woke culture thing. And that's entered into people's mindset for some odd reason. But I'm going to be attacking the women preaching thing. They're not the same. Absolutely 100% a woman can witness to a woman. I've never said anything differently. I think perhaps maybe I've not been clear about it. And if I've not been clear about it, I apologize. And anyone at any time can either call me out on this channel, or they can email me and say, hey, you said something and I think you may have misspoken. Could you clarify? I will absolutely clarify it. If someone didn't understand something, or if I misspoke, I will absolutely address it. But I can't address it and if no one brings it up. And that's another thing. People don't want to say anything. They go, that guy said that, so maybe he's off. Well, maybe he didn't mean to say that. But women absolutely can witness to another woman. There is nothing wrong with it. Absolutely zero. I've never said anything differently. Now, I don't believe women should be just running around witnessing to men. Okay, that's not a thing I agree with. Now, you can have your own opinion on it, and that's fine. You can say what you want to say, but I'm telling you, as I read the Bible and as it says, and there's plenty of verses to back it up, women are not to be preaching. Women are not to be going around preaching to men. Oh, but what if they're lost? I would like to know why your husband is allowing you to run around talking to men. I respect my wife, and I don't go around running around talking to people I shouldn't be. Now, yes, do I witness to women sometimes? Yes. I witness to, believe it or not, I witness to mostly men. I don't normally approach a lot of women. Maybe I'll hand a gospel tract to them, but I think it's just, I'd rather be with another guy and we're out somewhere and there's two people, so as a witness, but especially in the world we live in. But I love my wife way too much to put her in a situation that can be harmful. What was it? There was a guy, I think about a year ago in California. He was out there witnessing or whatever, preaching on the side, a street corner. I don't remember what happened, but he got shot. I think he survived. but he got shot. Now imagine if you were out there and you had your wife, and your wife got shot. Oh, well, she's going to heaven. No, you should have never put her in that situation. And I will say it over again, a real man does not put his wife in any situation that she shouldn't be in. Our job as men and as husbands and even fathers is to protect our family and keep them as far away from any possible harm that we can. I'm not saying we lock them up in the house and never let them out. That's not what I'm saying either. Because people like to jump to extremes because their brains can't handle it, because the immaturity is still resides within them. They don't have that mature level yet. They're just too busy wanting to be somebody and trying to validate their existence, and they want to attack other people, try to tear people down so they can build themselves up. It's an absolute ridiculous situation. But I do not believe women should be out there preaching on the streets, and there's nothing in the Bible that says so. And you can talk about Miriam, you can talk about Deborah, you can talk about Anna, you can talk about anyone you want, but you have to understand the context of the whole situation, read the whole thing, understand the time frame. But see, that's what they don't. They just like to take the little snippets. Women preaching to over men, that is a new age concept. And I've said it before. It's Pentecostal, it's charismatic. And this is not to put down women. I don't know why I always have to remind people this. Women have an amazing role. A wife and a mother is an incredible responsibility. They have it's mind-blowing what they have to do, which I think some of us husbands, I'll include myself in it, I think some of us don't appreciate it as much as we should. Because I know without my wife behind the scenes, I don't get to do this because I'd have to worry about something else. No, I don't have to worry about any of that. I mean, I have to worry about it to help my wife take care of the kids and take care of my dad, but you know what I mean? I don't have to be bogged down as much with that because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what the man is supposed to be doing out there. And if you look around and you see what women are into preaching, you find them all the time. Where do you find them? The lesbian churches, obviously, the United Methodist, the Pentecostal, the Charismatics, yes, the Pentecostals now, the Holiness Movement, the T.D. Jakes crowd, the Joel Osteen crowd, the Copelands, even Jesse Duplantis and his wife, even Justin Peters' wife, I think, does a side ministry, but she doesn't get involved as much from what I know. Yes, I've studied all of these men. I've studied all their backgrounds of these particular branches that they belong to, the Reformed Baptists, or just the Reformed, or the Calvinists, and so forth. But none of them, when I look over and over again, except for some offshoot on the fringe folks, when you get to the King James people, which I love, after I read years ago, and I was fully committed to the King James Bible because I grew up in the NIV, obviously, being a Pentecostal. And I'll give the Baptists this, most of the Baptists, the hardcore Baptists, the old school Baptists, and I would say I would be old school Baptist, but old school Baptist, which means before 1800s Baptist, when they wouldn't participate in anything that had anything to do with the Roman Catholic churches and paganism and so forth and so on. They were old school, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, and so forth. I mean, I'm not saying I want to be a Puritan. Calm down. But I do like the Pilgrims Thanksgiving because, man, that's good food. All right, that was a joke. I was just trying to slide one in there. It doesn't exist. And even in the Pentecostal church when I was growing up, even though they were NIV, actually, I'm sorry, when I was a child, really young, apparently, from what my brother tells me, they were half the Pentecostals were King James and half of them were NIV. But there was a weird in-between time with the NKJV, but they kind of abandoned it, went straight to the NIV. And my church, I guess, when I was younger, started out King James, but then moved into the NIV. But when I was a kid, there was no women out there preaching. There were no women witnessing, or even on the streets. It just didn't exist. My mother would tell me that. I've talked to my mother about that because we've had our conversation before she passed away. We've had a few of those type of conversations. I've had them with my brother about my mother. But anywho, but it didn't exist. And then all of a sudden you go from the 80s on. And then when that NIV switchover happens, when they're fully in on the NIV side, That's when it began. From the 80s on, it was women were allowed to start preaching a lot of different places, and then the 90s came and they were allowed to do it. And then obviously today it's all over the place in your mainstream Christianity. It's all over the place. So yeah, I think I went down a different road there, but yeah, no. And there's nothing there. And I know people love to go with Deborah. Here's a funny thing about some people who support women preaching will tell you that we are New Testament, we're New Testament only, we live New Testament, but then they want to use Old Testament when to try to prove a point that they want to make that validates their stance. I'm like, well, then don't tell me you're just New Testament. And you know how I feel. We live in the New Testament house with the foundation of an Old Testament. We don't throw out one and take the other. It doesn't work that way. So, and we understand Deborah. I think Brother Jorge, I hate to call him out on this one. I think he did a real good study at one time on Deborah, but understand the context of why she was in charge. You know why? Because there's weak men. Weak. I'm trying to find a better word. Weak, ineffective, sissy men. I don't. I'm trying to find a better word. Hey, I'm a high school dropout. I don't have a great vocabulary. What can I tell you? But that's why we have that situation. And that was just a slap in their face because they failed their job. But I'm not going to get into all that. I've got a lot of those studies coming out, a lot of those things on the back burner to get deeper into those things. But yeah, so long-winded as I just became, women absolutely 100% can witness to another woman. They can share the gospel with another woman. I've never said anything differently. Why would I? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm dumbfounded by that. It's come to my attention that they thought I thought that. I don't think that at all. Not 1 second. And the men are supposed to be preaching. The men are supposed to be out there and hitting those streets. Now, if you think about and let's look at folks. Some of you I know like to be old school or try to be old school. My wife and I try also our best to be old school as possible. But if we're going to go old school, let's say we're going to go off the grid or anything like that. The woman gets up in the morning, right? If you look at the way biblical times used to be, she got up in the morning. She got everything ready for the day for the children and the husband when the husband went out there on the streets. Woman takes care of the home, takes care of the children. Also has to spend 4 or 5 hours making food to get ready for for her husband when he gets back. So tell me how she's supposed to be witnessing out on the streets or preaching or going places and talking to men all day long. It's not there. It's not the norm. It's not what the Bible calls for. There are those who don't work for a living. I like to know where that is in the Bible. That's not. And when they say full-time ministry, you know what I think of? I think of the priests in the Old Testament. You're just sitting around taking the money and having everybody do work. That's what I see. And a lot of other people see the same thing. We are just making a mockery out of the Bible, some guys. They are, unfortunately. And there are people dressed up as old-time Baptist folks and old-time King James folks, but they ain't. They're playing. It's a theater. They're acting. They're actors. I'm not saying they're actually paid actors in a movie. They're actors. And when you watch them long enough, you know that there's something missing, but you overlook it. I think there are some men, like I mentioned in my video earlier today, they like the pancake preachers. And that's what some of these guys are. It's really good around there. You know, most of that pancake's not bad. You're like, oh, it's cooked. That's good. Then you start getting in the middle and you're like, this did not cook all the way through. And that's what happens with them. But then it gets worse and worse and worse. And the food that they're giving you is worse and worse. But you're overlooking it because you were listening for so long. Now you're there. It's like when you go to a church, right? Some of you have been to a church and you've been there long enough and you're like, wait a second, it's the same thing. Nothing's changing. I don't understand it's the same. I'm sitting here. And then they get in the position like, well, I've been here this long. Where am I going to go? What church am I going to go to? Where am I going to go? This is the only thing I know. And that, I think there's a slight little bit of fear of leaving that and going to another church because you're afraid that they're not going to, they'll be worse. But the problem is they could be better. And yes, they could be worse. But if you're going to stay in a spot you know that ain't quite right, it's not really up to par, but you've been there so long that you don't want to make that cut from it. Well, sometimes you just have to rip off the Band-Aid. I mean, for me, I've been fortunate. I'm always moving forward. I don't get tied down to things except for a wonderful wife. That didn't come out right. Tied down to things, a wonderful wife. It sounded like I just said I was tied down to a wife. It's not what it meant. I love my wife dearly. Now I'm going to have to apologize to my wife. I misspoke. But I'm incredibly blessed, actually, to have my wife. It's just a made God-fearing woman. I mean, what she does is absolutely just boggles my mind that she can handle what she handles. Yeah, I don't mind bragging about her because I think it's okay. You shouldn't really brag about yourself, but I think you can have a little pride in other people and brag slightly. Brag being not the best word to use, but to do what she does, she cooks most of the meals are home cooked. Doing the sewing, she sews and makes shirts, makes pants, makes all kinds of stuff. Things that I don't really 100% know. But an amazing. She's much kinder than me. She's more. She has a whole lot more mercy than I do. Much more loving than I am. And I'm not saying just because she's probably watching right now. Oh, well, she is watching. But I mean that. I've said it over and over again. I'm amazed at it. Take care of my father who is ill. Oh, that's another thing I want to talk about. Taking care of loved ones that may not be on the same page as you biblically. I think that's a tough one for people to handle because they're like, well, I don't agree with my parents on this or that. Okay, but they're your parents. Unless they beat you terribly or did some really, really awful things, which that's another ballgame. There's exceptions to the norm, you know what I mean? But my father and I don't see eye to eye completely on these things, and I'm trying. I drop some a little bit of seeds here and there, but I'm hoping they finally take before it passes on. But we are not on the same page on the Bible at all. We are. He's Pentecostal. I don't know if he claims he's Pentecostal because then he became charismatic Pentecostal. Then he was charismatic. Then he was Pentecostal and talking to him. So whatever. But he does believe in speaking in tongues, and he used to speak in tongues around me all the time. All the time. I go visit him always. And one of the prayers we had here, my wife and I prayed, Lord, don't ever let him speak tongues in this house. That was a please don't let that happen. Please. We plead with the Lord, it never happened, and it never has. He has not spoken in tongues one time here that I'm aware of, anyways. Not one time, so I'm thankful for that. But there are other things, but I won't sidetrack on that one. But we are supposed to take care of our parents if we can. Not all of us have the ability to do so. We're not, we're not blessed with all of the house or the space or finances or whatever it may be. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you can't do it. You weren't put in that position. We were, so we have to. We have to take care of our kin the best that we can. And when I say kin, I'm really talking about your parents. If you've got older children, they're not your responsibility anymore. I mean, a mother would disagree with you, but I think most fathers would agree with me. They're not your responsibility. They need to fly now. They need to figure out life. They need to get it done themselves. You can give them the best that you got. If they want some advice, so be it. But they've got to figure it all out. Mothers are different because the children are always going to be their babies. And it's just how they are. Well, a good mother, I would have to say that's how they feel. But we don't have to, I think we're commanded to take care of our parents, not our grown children that have moved forward. So there you go. I sidetracked off into that area right there. But I think what my goal here, I think, is to try to clarify some of my stances. I think that people may be a little confused at where I stand. And I'm not mocking those people. I don't know how I was confused at where I stood, but I want to clarify it, and I have no problem with that. I don't. I haven't flip flopped. It's funny because I was watching an old nativity video I did 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. I did this nativity video, and how bad it was, and how what is idol worship. And it popped up in my feed, or I went looking for it. I think. Well, no, it didn't pop up because I was going to make a Christmas playlist, and I was going through to see if I had anything in there. And well, I still believe the same thing now as I did 5 years ago. So and nothing's changed that there on the nativity. So I haven't flip flopped on that. Some folks have, but I have not. Stayed the same. But and here I am monopolizing most of this conversation. Uh, I'm sorry, everybody, but we. I think the main point is we need to be there for one another, and I think that really is missing. A lot of people say things like, "Yeah, yeah, we should definitely be there for each other, help each other out. Yeah, I'll text you. Yeah, I'll email you." But then they don't text, they don't email, they don't do none of that. Nobody keeps it. That's sad. In fact, I just texted a gentleman that I haven't seen in 2 years to see how he was doing. Um, I got no response, and that's what happens. You think you got to a good place with somebody, and then it's not there. What are you gonna do? I guess you can learn pretty quickly um, when people, or the timing of when people respond, if they respond at all, where that friendship, or that a brotherly love is, or where that relationship in Christ is. Where are they, and where you are? Some people run pretty quickly if there's a small disagreement. They're gone. They head out. I think a lot of disagreements are things that are easily solvable because they can fall under the umbrella of misunderstanding, and that's something that happens out there. And I think as older people, we've been through this. We know how that works, and we need to really help the younger generation. I'm getting back to that younger generation. Um, Look at what they have today: Bethel, Hillsong, all that CCM stuff. Look around you. What are the? I don't even know them all. I'm trying to think of all the names out there, but all those easy believisms, the you can heal things and bring things into existence. And some of that stuff is pretty evil. How they claim that they brought people back to life. I'm like, wow. And people fall for it. My time frame, it was, the Benny Hinns and the Oral Roberts, and Pat Robertson was around back then, the Jimmy Swaggarts, Jim Baker. Jim Baker's still around. A lot of those guys, the PTL guys, and all those bunch of grifters and crooks and so forth. A lot of them out there. But see, we have a desire. We have a fleshly desire to want to be able to do something, to be worthwhile, to have some validation to our existence, to get rid of the bad things in our lives. So when people sell us this dream or this hope that we can pray it all away, people are on board. They'll jump on board right away. But as I've said before a million times, I'm sure other people have said it, God never promised us this perfect life. He didn't promise us we wouldn't have aches and pains and heartache and sorrow. These things exist. We lose our mothers, we lose our fathers, we lose our loved ones, we lose our brothers, sisters. These things are happening. We have arthritis in our knee. We got a bad collarbone. Some folks get migraines and headaches. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm just saying these things happen. And it's a bummer. It's part of aging. It's part of life. And some of it you can get rid of yourself. These are things that you can manage. And some things are just the way they are. My knee's pretty shot. I got arthritis in my knee. I'm not sad over it. Sad that I can't run up and down the basketball court like I once could. But, I guess when you go over the age of 50, suddenly you can't run as fast. But there's nothing wrong with that, because you're reaching a point in your life where you're more of an elder person, not elderly, but an elder person. You're in a different stage of your life where you can teach other people things. Tell people, hey, you shouldn't run up and down the basketball court for 30 straight years. Maybe not the best idea in the world. It's a poor analogy, but that's what I was just thinking of for me anyways. We've we've made mistakes along the way, and to pretend we didn't make them just so somebody else doesn't put us down for it, don't do that. Don't worry about that, because a true Bible believing born again Christian will not do that. They will not put you down for your past mistakes in life. They won't. But the problem is, some profess to be something and then they say things, and then you're afraid to open up to others because these people have destroyed the whole thing. And I will say right now, I don't believe any of those people are saved. I really don't. Because if they are truly saved, why would they attack? Why would they put you down? Why would they make you feel less? That's the absolute opposite of what the Bible teaches us to do. When we're going through hard times, we're not supposed to say, hey, well, maybe you shouldn't have done this. Well, maybe you shouldn't have done that. No, it's like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear this. So what happened? Let's pray. Let's figure a way out of this and figure out how to handle the situation. But no. And that would be, in my opinion, a true born again Christian right there. Bam. That person who steps up and goes, hey, I'll pray for you. Not just pray for you, not do anything, but what do you need? How can I help? If you can help. Sometimes, again, I've said this before, the only way you can help someone is to pray. That's all you can offer. And that's not a bad thing to offer. It's just, that's what you have. You don't have a lot of money to send them. You don't have this to send them. But prayer, above all, you can definitely do that. You absolutely do that for folks. But those who go the opposite direction and only lift up some but put down others, those are not born again Christians. I'm going to say it right now. And unless you're calling someone out for a reason, and I guess putting down, I did use a couple of name calling today. I think I called them sinners. People are liars and thieves. I get one could turn around and say, well, isn't that putting them down? Maybe, but it's also stating a fact of truth. That's all there is to it. Stating a fact or truth is fine when it comes to things. I'm disappointed that from this side of things. Now, it doesn't mean I'm running back to church buildings. That's not what this means. It just means I'm disappointed in these folks who talk about how bad church buildings are and how evil they are because of how they attack people or gossip. I was talking about this earlier, slander and all these things. And yet it exists in their online church. It's there. Now, I'm getting worried. Maybe some people get excited. They're like, oh, man, I want 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 subscribers. I think 1,500 or something like that. And that worries me because I'm like, yikes, that's a lot of subscribers. So most people don't make comments, which is weird to me, but that's okay. Some people, I think, and I know of a couple people that I think are worried about making comments because they're worried about other people watching. Unfortunately, that does exist. Other people do watch other people's channels. Thankfully, I don't have that kind of time. I work for a living, so which is the beauty of working, because guess what? No idle hands. Ho, you go to work, get stuff to do, not sitting around the house going, I wonder who's talking badly about me today. That's crazy. That's just, to me, that's absolute lunacy. I don't understand that. So, but again, something exists. So I know that I'm probably hitting a mark with some folks, and I don't mean to be mean or rude to anyone, but we need to take stock in what's going on out there. And we have to stop just going along to get along. We are supposed to, if you're born again, you're supposed to stand out. You are supposed to stand out. I don't mean stand out like holding big placards on the side of the road. I'm not saying like that. I mean, just when people watch you, they know you're different. They're like, something's different about this person. They're peculiar. How come they don't get involved with this and that and the other? They don't do anything of the world. But you can be a light to people. Like I said before, you can reach people, I think, sometimes without even knowing you're reaching them. I think that's the interesting thing. I've made that comment before. You can be witnessing someone down at the gas station, and that person is not receptive at all, but there's somebody behind you down an aisle, and they're listening. And that may be the one you're there for. So never get discouraged if you're ever witnessing to someone and you talk to somebody and like they're not listening at all. I can't. I'm failing. I'm failing. Be careful. You may not be failing at all because the person behind you is the one that you were there for. You never know. You never know. Like the woman at the pregnant woman. I do not usually help people like that. Not help pregnant people. I don't usually just do what I did there, but I was getting the gas for my vehicle for the work vehicle, and I just kept on looking, and there was just a strong pull, and so try to help that person. Now I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be the one that fosters anything. I don't know if I'll be the one that goes and brings her the gospel, and I'm the one who brings her to a church and she gets saved. But if I'm just the one that's dropping the seed, so be it. Someone else can come along and do it. That's fine. And that's the thing. Some of us are just, we throw the seeds. Sometimes we throw seeds. Sometimes we're not the ones cultivating it. And sometimes we are cultivating. But I think we worry too much about how we should do things. I'm like, well, what if I do this? What if I don't, well, am I doing it right? Pray and ask the Lord's guidance. Holy Spirit's going to lead you. Wherever that may be, he's going to lead you. And you're going to do what you need to be doing. Even if you don't think you are doing it, you're doing it. And I think that's important. Some people want to see their fruit. They want to see what they did. And other people want to see what you did. I don't know all the time. I know some people that I have reached and led along the way, but I don't know of anybody else. I don't know what happened to somebody that I might talk to in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I don't know. I'm sorry. Amen. I needed that encouragement. Oh, you're welcome. It's nice to see you. Thank you for being here. I know I don't know you, but I already feel blessed that you were here this evening. Thank you. I'm grateful for that. But we need to be not worried about everything all the time. We are probably in the place we're supposed to be, even though it doesn't feel like that we're supposed to be there. I've been in places I'm like, how did I get here? How in the world did I get here? And then you look back afterwards and you're like, because guess what? You don't know the big picture. You don't know. I think I heard a long time ago somewhere when I was younger. It might be an old story, but something about the tapestry. I don't know what it was, but you only see that one little strand, but there's a much bigger picture going on. The quilt is much bigger. Why am I talking about quilts? My wife sewing quilts, so now quilts is in my brain now. But we don't know. We don't know. Don't worry about things. Do what you're supposed to do, and you're going to be fine. Don't. I think people, like I said, they beat themselves over. I don't need to see someone's fruits all the time to know that they've done something, which means I'm probably avoiding what I'm doing. Instead of self-examining if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm more concerned about what someone else is doing if they're doing it. Don't worry about what they're doing. Worry about you. And if they come to you and they need help and you say, hey, do you mind if I say something? And hopefully if they're born again, they'll say, yeah, what's up? I'm like, could I give you some advice? You can get, I know I'm getting a little off the track, but it's amazing how there's no back and forth anymore. It's gone. Everybody's like, no, I'm going to do it my way. It's like when I went to do one particular warehouse, I went in to do inventory control, which is what I do. I used to do inventory. And I went in there and, and I'm sure, and I've said this a million times, Brother Jorge knows me very well. Well, this is the way we've always done it. Right. Hence is the reason I'm here at the moment, because it didn't go so well. So we can help one another at all times. And we shouldn't be feeling guilty. We shouldn't feel like we're stupid. I think some people feel that they don't know enough to be effective or to say anything out there. No. If God has laid it upon your heart, for lack of better phrasing, because people will nitpick that particular phrase, then go, do it. Talk to that person, whoever she or he may be. And, I think a lot of older women can reach out to a lot of younger women who are completely lost. Some are messed up with this new theology of life. So this new fandangled way of doing things, of and just taking the scriptures and just messing them all up, taking them out of order, throwing them out the window. But I don't need to see if I've made an impact on somebody's life. I need to know that I made that attempt to make an impact if I can. And whatever happens after that, I leave in God's hands. And if somebody else, he puts somebody else in their path, then so be it. That's awesome. That's great. But just do your part. Not worry about you being the most impactful person, because you're already impactful in the way that you've talked to the person, or left the gospel track, or given them a sandwich, or was down at the homeless shelter, or made a quilt or a blanket for newborn babies, or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Just do those things. And another thing I wanted to address this evening, because I guess I'm in a mood of clarifying things to make sure people know where I stand. Um, testimonies. Testimonies is an interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing. Now, a man of my age, getting close to needing a cane, I'm just exaggerating. I'm sorry. I'm somewhere between the age of 50 and 100. I'm just going to leave it there. I think sometimes we make too much of a big deal of testimonies. I know that's going to come out wrong at first. Please let me elaborate on that. There are some folks who have an amazing testimony, just a phenomenal testimony, and it's wonderful. They've gotten out of drugs and alcohol and all kinds of things. They've been in jail and all this and that and the other, and they're great. They're wonderful testimonies. And then there are other people who didn't go through any of that, but they're saved. So I think we put too much emphasis on one person's testimony and another, because God doesn't care about how you got there. He cares that you're there. As a child of God, he's glad you're here. He loves you because you're here. He's not so much going, well, I like your testimony better than your testimony, so I think I'm going to bring you up a level. No. And here's the other thing we have to remember about testimonies. And now, again, I'm going to pull the whole old man card here. I've heard a lot of testimonies over the years in a lot of different places, and some sounded good. It turns out they were liars. They were false. So for me, my personal way of view, I'm not so much concerned about how you got here or how you came to the Lord, how you became saved. I'd like to know if you're still here. Where you were 10 years ago is less important to me than where you're now. As well as myself, I should be in a much different place. If I'm not in a different spot than I was 10 years ago, then we have a problem. If that's my concern. And people can make up stories, especially on the internet age now. You can't validate them. You can't hold them accountable. You can't really check them unless you're going to hire a private investigator to follow somebody around. You're not going to, obviously we're not going to do that. So you don't know if their testimony is true. You take it at face value. But I would put credence in how they're living at that moment than how they got there. Testimonies are important. They're wonderful. They're beautiful. But I think we need to worry about where they are in that moment, this moment now, because some people, and I've heard some good testimonies, and it turns out they were not telling the truth. And I've heard some boring testimonies, so to speak. I know it sounds awful saying it. I've heard boring testimonies, and that person is an amazing, godly person. So I think when you're looking at testimonies and listening to testimonies of people, that's okay. It's fine. And giving your own testimony, that's fine. But understand, how you became saved is less important than, are you still saved? Once saved, always saved. Did you really get saved? Did you really change your life? Are you any different than you were 5, 10, 15 years ago? If not, there's a problem there, right? There's an issue. We have to examine that and figure it out. Why have you not moved on? And now, again, some of that could be just discipleship. That's a big problem we have today too, is discipleship. Everybody, although everybody wants to be a discipler, they always, I'm going to make disciples. Call and order my special program right now, 1995. Send in the mail, shipping and handling is free. But I don't know if anybody's doing that anymore. But there's no discipleship. I remember when I was younger, my wife and I were talking about the same thing happened to her. Especially when Bibles came into play. You're like, hey, what Bible should we reading? Oh, don't worry about it. They're all the same. Or this is another one. They're basically all the same. Well, so right here, that phrase in itself tells me that they're not all the same because you just used the word basically, which means there are some differences, but you personally don't think it's a big deal. Then you find out what's missing. I tell a story all the time. Luke 4:4, that was my turnaround. When I read that and realized half the verse was missing, that was my way. That was my moment of like, hold on a second. And that led me on a whole path of different Bibles, exploring every one to see where they were all changed, whether it be the Message, the NIV, NKJV, the Net Bible, the REV, the ESV. I don't know. I can't. My glasses aren't on, but anyways, the New English Bible right there, the CEV, CSB. You go through all these Bibles, and you realize, wait a second. And I'm glad that I learned all of that before I knew that there were other people doing it out there, and that was a surprise to me that there were a few other people doing it, and realizing there was a manuscript issue here. There was a division somewhere along the way, and once I realized where they were, so I'm thankful that I was able. The Lord let me learn all these things, or I shouldn't say help me with the Spirit to lead me in the right positions to find all this out before I learned that other people did it. So that way, I don't have to sit here and go, well, I learned from this man, so I'm going to stand up from him no matter how bad he did or da-da-da. And I was just blown away. But there's no discipleship, so they're not basically all the same. Those phrases that we have to pay attention to. And if you know me, I'm King James only. And I always say this because I think the big person in this whole King James only movement thing is I don't know why I'm flailing my arms around. Is Peter Ruckman, Dr. Peter Ruckman. I don't like the whole word doctor unless you're performing surgery, but Peter Ruckman, I guess, is a big one in there, and I have heard his stuff, and I'm on board with some of his stuff. Other things, I'm like, I don't know, but I did make a video because it was interesting to me that the King James only thing got put on him. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a second. When was did the King James Bible get written? Like right around when he was born or something? Is that why? No. I mean, he was probably the best one to point out how it was the best translation, but King James existed before him. And the King James only movement existed before Peter Ruckman, before all the other ones that came out after 1881. So I guess there was a larger King James only movement because all the churches way back then were mostly King James. You had a smattering of the ones, yes. You had the Geneva was still in effect. You had obviously the Catholic Bible was there, but they weren't as many as we have now. Everybody and their mama be making a Bible nowadays. But so I consider myself blessed to be able to have learned these things without having to owe any man any knowledge. Ruckman, like I said, decent guy. There are like people, I guess, Sam Gibb or Gip. He's a big King James movement person, I guess. I don't know a lot about him. I've seen a couple of his videos, but I don't know. Then there's Gail Riplinger. I don't think I have anything from Gail Riplinger. Oh, no, I do. I'm sorry, I do. My brother sent me something from Gail Riplinger in the mail, or for last year, I think. And I have not read it yet. Not because I don't want to. I just haven't got around to it yet. Sorry. But yeah. I suggest to people, you just pick up the King James Bible and you read it from the front to the back. You'll be amazed by it. But I also think there are a lot of deceptive and wicked men out there that are holding up that King James Bible and spouting off lies. and that's unfortunate, and using it for their own personal gain, and that's unfortunate. We're not supposed to profit off the word of God at all. That's so if you know me in this channel, I don't ask for money or donations. I did one point, and I set up a donation page for about 5 seconds. Someone was wonderful and enough to send me $50 in the Give Send Me Go, but I shortly shut it down after that. In fact, I bought the John and Romans booklets with that $50 actually. But I work for a living, so I don't ask for people's money or anything like that. I don't get paid by anyone. I work hard every day to get my paycheck. And so I felt guilty asking for money. I tell people if they want, they can send, but if anything, send me some gospel tracts. I'll put them out there. Or even better than that, you all can put the gospel tracts out there. Just go put them out there everywhere you can. I think Brother Jorge can correct me. Provgal probably correct me too on this. I think I've always said if I put 1 million gospel tracts out there, one gets to the right hands, that's a win. I'll call that a success. Because you're not going to win a lot. But remember, there's far less people in heaven than there are in hell. But I believe for every one person in hell, every 10 rather, or 10 people in hell, one person in heaven will smite them all. So that's how I look at it. What am I, over an hour into this? I'm an hour and 11 minutes, and I've just gone on and on and on, rambling on. But I do appreciate, I should probably wind this down now. But I hope I've clarified some of my positions. You may disagree with them. That's fine. But these are some of my positions, and I want to clarify a few of them. And the last thing I'd like to see is division. But there will be proper division and separation. That's fine. But over malice things and stupid things, I think is insane. And most of these men, like I said, who create division because they would like to be on that pedestal. They need to be there. I think some people get too big for their britches, so to speak, and they reach that point. That's why I hope I don't want. I don't want to ever get. I say I don't want to ever get 100,000 people subscribers. I'm not going to get 100,000 subscribers. I don't say anything popular enough to get 100,000 subscribers. So I've always been one of those people, and I am that person now. I don't fit in with the church building crowd, and I don't fit in with the non-church crowd. A lot of those anti-churches, and it's because it's just sad because they're both what I say all the time. They're just so far apart, yet they're so alike, and they don't even know they're alike. They're too busy hating one another to realize they're almost on the same page on everything. Except for they're not in a church building, So, all right. Well, I'm going to wind this down. I'm thankful for everybody as usual now watching and down the road. Heed God's word. Thank you for being here this evening. I've never seen you before, so I'm thankful and blessed that you showed up this evening. So thank you for that. Brother Jorge, as always, I love you, bud. I'll talk to you again. That's how I am too. Oh, let me not sign off yet. That's how I am too and have felt for a long time. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean we should be isolationists, but thank you. I caught the second half. That's okay. Even if you caught the last third, I'm happy you were here. I'm thankful and I'm blessed that you were here. So I hope to see you again down the road or whenever the next time you're around on these live streams. But I'm here every Saturday, barring any unforeseen circumstances. But going back to Acts for a second, yeah. It's not bad to feel like you don't belong in a place because you belong in one spot, and that's here. And anyone else who is following this Bible, this King James Bible, still got that tape all falling off. I really got to get a different one, but a large print one. All my other King James are all smaller print, and I can't read them. My local publisher one, I can't read. It's a beautiful Bible, but I can't read it. But thank you again as I go on. Okay, glad you all came to join us tonight. That's Provgal's way of trying to wind me down here and tell me, come on now, we gotta don't keep going on and on. These people can't be up all night long. But thank you again. Honestly, I appreciate it. So as always, I'm gonna awkwardly sign out. I am as always, thankful and grateful for everybody who tuned in. Um, and I hope to be blessed by your presence next week. And with that, God bless and have a beautiful evening and a beautiful week if I don't talk to you. Good night.